So here's an idea. What if I make a YouTube video where I try to build the Goblin Tinker in Warsmash, or maybe a series of videos? That sounded kind of fun, and then I thought in order to do that, I should probably just make one, or I just make one ability. And what should that ability be? So how about I make cluster rockets? Now, the secret to cluster rockets is that these guys just copied Blizzard. You really, they had just invented the Goblin Tinker as a joke for a April Fool's joke. There's an April Fool's joke. They were like, maybe we'll make a Goblin Tinker. Oh, I spelled this wrong. Let me recreate this. So I'm going to make a folder for the Tinker. They were like, maybe we should make the Goblin Tinker. And then somebody told them, wait a minute, that's a good idea. Why don't you do that for real? And so they made the Goblin Tinker for real. So when they wanted to make cluster rockets, I'm pretty sure all they did is just copy Blizzard from the Archmage, and then probably use the rename function to, instead of Blizzard, name this cluster rockets. So functionally, I think it's nearly identical. Building reduction and the ability fields we're loading. Because of Warsmash, I do have to get my ability fields through the cluster rockets here instead of, what is it, cluster rockets? Wait, we only have cluster rockets effect duration? Well, that's not okay. We got to get cluster rockets, really. So, what that tells me is that we're missing some stuff. NCS 6. So, Warsmash has this deficiency when you're building abilities, unfortunately, that we do have to sometimes go in here and figure out the metadatas. Maybe I already had this open. Alright. Yeah. So, let me just, basically we want to go in this metadata, and we want to search for, what is it? NCS1, and see if that exists. It does. So we have CS1 through 6, and for some reason, the provided list of fields is missing NCS1. So I don't know. Let's try to find, where did Warsmash put NCS1? It's right here, damage amount. What is it called? Healing spray. Okay, so this is a little bit silly. So cluster rockets and healing spray share their data lookups. So we got to use a bunch of what Warsmash is automatically labeling healing spray. And that's kind of silly. I should probably fix that later. But we'll see. So there's damage amount. Literally though, regardless of Warsmash's odd way to query these fields, in Blizzard's code, we're pretty sure it was a string lookup on data A1. So that's even easier than mine here. So just ability fields. Damage per second was not copied over. I think they eliminated this when they copied Blizzard. Maximum damage per wave was kept, so we would see this in healing spray max damage. Number of shards and number of waves changed into, I think, what probably is going to be healing spray missile count. And then, so instead of shard count and wave count, we have something called missile count. That's like probably the only major change. There's a picture of missiles on it. So we have missile count. What else do we have in healing spray over here? Damage interval. So yeah, kind of like, interesting. So Blizzard uses casting time as a wave delay. But if you look at cluster rockets, they don't have casting time. They don't have that. So instead of wave delay, we want to query, float field like this. Same kind of idea, but we're going to do the damage interval, I guess. So instead of wave delay, we're going to rename this damage interval. Damage interval. Let's see. Cool. And then that's also where I think there is effect duration, which is another one. And it's interesting to see that one, maybe that's only on cluster rockets, but clearly these things are copied off of each other. Put this up here next to damage interval. Probably don't have wave count. So then I guess we can say, is there anything else we're not getting? Healing spray. Let's get our autofill here. What do we got? Damage interval we have. Building damage factor we have. Damage amount we have. Max damage we have. Missile count. Oh, there actually is wave count. Oh, that's kind of funny. So, hold up. NCS 6 is wave count in one case, missile count in the other? Oh, it's NHS 6. Okay. So literally just like, does that mean that cluster rockets and healing spray differ only on missile count and wave count in healing spray, whereas cluster rockets has only missile count? And effect duration, which automatically decides it. Sure, okay. So basically they're incredibly similar. But we don't have to worry about that right now because we're just gonna have effect duration. So we don't have to have the other one. Cool. Base order ID, cluster rockets. When we start casting it, we're going to reset some of these fields. So there was a current wave field. I could probably keep that. Wave for damage used to exist. I don't think we're going to have wave for damage anymore. So this has some kind of preset delay, which is a little bit interesting. I think what is the delay here? Because there's not a casting time delay, not built in. Not as a part, skill specific delay. So it would seem like what used to be a wave delay no longer gets used for that purpose, and we pretty much just start. Yeah. All right. We'll just start off immediately for now. So once we begin, we know our wave tick. We just kind of do the damage. Just getting rid of wave for damage. So I guess previously the way I'd done this, I had damage waves and I had falling shard waves. And I'm not sure we need that anymore. I think instead, the way that this is going to work is they probably deleted the falling shard waves to just paste them somewhere else. And then for the most part said, primarily what this is going to do is figure out, maybe I'm deleting too much. That's interesting. Maybe I'm deleting too much. So rather than all this deleting that I'm doing, what if instead of wave delay, we have the damage interval, which is actually pretty much the wave delay. So that's worth remembering for me, that when we would do this stuff with wave delay, literally, like, that's the damage interval. I want to say we just use the damage interval for that. But the first delay isn't damage interval. The first delay is something like 1.0. It's almost like they've just hard-coded it. I'm not exactly sure. So it's kind of like you have this initial delay, and you shoot a bunch of rockets. And so then, when we do shoot the rockets, we're probably not going to have this local wave delay thing. We're just gonna let it be what it is. The damage interval, because generally the idea is we use the effect duration to decide how long this thing will run. So this is like effect duration over an end tick. So it's like when the effect ends. And that can pretty much just be something that starts off at next wave tick, and then we add some amount of time, where that amount of time is going to be, instead of 1, it's going to be effect duration. So there's this range of time where we're doing the effect duration. And so basically, return, instead of a current wave count, which we almost really don't need, all Although maybe I could keep that as a way to know when it's on the first wave, but we're not going to end based on that. We're going to end based on when the turn tick of the game is greater than or equal to the effect duration end tick, just when it's all over. So that's when we stop casting. So we're casting, because my understanding is there's kind of a preset delay, and then after the preset delay, we shoot a bunch of rockets and deal waves of damage. So most of that is going to be next wave tick on damage. And so when we're doing that, if current wave equals 0, then we're going to stun. That's the thing. We stun on the first wave, and then we do a couple waves of damage. And then we have to have a picture of rockets also, but we'll get to the picture of rockets. So we could probably delete this thing that's spawning spell effects, although it randomly, we could use the way that it randomly knows where to shoot them. But for the most part, I'll delete that. So we have these periodic damage waves, and then we're gonna have this stun. Periodic damage wave, current wave plus plus, wave for damage doesn't need to exist anymore. So simplify that out. Basically, when we do this, when we get to the next tick, we do some stuff, and then we go damage interval forward, damage interval, damage interval, damage interval, damage interval, damage interval, and it's just iterating like that. And each time we do it, we loop the targets, and we're just going to use the copy of Blizzard for how to deal the damage. But I noticed current wave plus plus is up here, so current wave equals 0 is going to be wrong. Really, it's going to be current wave equals 1. Also, I guess I kind of just deleted the thing that was actually dropping waves out of the sky. So the art is gone. We do need to put back rockets. So current wave plus plus is at the top here, and as long as that's at the top, that is going to mean that I'm actually going to want to say if current wave equals 1, and then that's pretty much just going to be a matter of, for all the targets that we're damaging, we want to say damage target add within the game simulation a new buff stun, which is a timed buff. I think that we can just do that, or we can just say create a new handle ID for that buff. We could do get buff. Is there a way to get the buff? I'll get back to that. And then duration, and the duration I think is probably this dot get. Maybe it doesn't have this dot get duration. So this is where we're going to go to Mountain King Thunderbolt. What is that? Oh, okay, that's an old spell. It sucks. Never mind, we're not going to use that one. Duration. Okay, it does look like the spell is responsible for parsing its own buff ID and duration. So I'm just going to copy those off Water Elemental. Basically just in populate data, when we populate off the world editor data, we want to get our own buff ID and duration. Yeah, so I'm going to auto-create that, because we want the code editor to write the code as much as possible. So I have buff ID and duration. They're created based on whenever we gain or level up the skill and populate data. That makes sense. So I have a buff ID, I have a duration. Cool. So now that I have buff ID and duration, I'm going to pass those to this thing that's stunning down here. So this is going to be buff ID, and then it's going to be duration. Cool. Now I do think that I might want to auto-format this code because I didn't have an auto-formatter right now. That's great. So you can always auto-format code. It makes it so that if you edit it later, you're not thinking about editing formatting, which seems nice. Cool. So we stun them. C-buff stun should just do that. I guess if you wanted to handle buff stacking, maybe there's a world where we're going to have to later expand upon what buff stun is, and then make it a cluster rockets buff class so that it doesn't stack with the stun buff. But right now, the buffs just everything just stacks. They just all duplicate on Warsmash, which is a little bit jank. So that's something that'll probably need to be fixed later, but is what it is for now. Yeah. Cool. So now I have this stun buff. So basically we hit everything in the area, we stun them all in the first wave, and then we do damage after that. And I was looking at cluster rockets earlier today, and it seems like that's all it is. It's this copy off of Archmage Blizzard, and it does the damage, and then all the rockets are just a picture of rockets. It's almost just like fake on the side. I'm also not sure how the first rocket arrival is decided, which is where I put in that one. So let me actually make a constant we could change here later. First rocket delay, which is going to be 1 second. And we might customize, if we can find, if that's actually an editor setting, maybe we'll use an editor setting instead of something hard-coded. But now it's really obvious that it's hard-coded, at least. Cool. Yeah, let me run the auto formatters on that. Cool. So we know we have this rocket delay, and we're taking the rocket delay, and basically I want to start shooting little rockets. That's the other side of this, which is its own kind of thing, and is really independent of the copy of Blizzard that we have. We also don't need effect ID, so we can nuke that out of here. I wasn't really thinking about that. Yeah, because missile count is not used right now, and we want to use missile count. We want to put a picture of little rockets in here. So to put the little picture of rockets in here, let me just have, like, we had next wave tick. Let's put next missile tick. And so next missile tick, we want to reset that. We reset next wave tick. We're probably going to reset next missile tick, but I think it's just going to be the game's current turn tick, which I'm actually thinking, sorry, I meant to replace 2 on that. No, game turn tick, 2 instances. Yeah, game turn tick. I think the next missile tick, maybe we'll just do the current game tick. So basically it just starts off immediately. And that, we'll see where it's at. But so basically all this is happening, and then that's actually the damage, and that's actually how long the caster stays busy. But I think that while that's happening, if I could maybe save off this, because I'm going to reuse it. We know the game turn tick, and so it's totally independently. I'm going to say if the game turn tick is greater than or equal to next missile tick, and then at that point I'm just going to say next missile tick will equal game turn tick plus about 4. I was thinking about this earlier. If you look at cluster rockets a lot, it's totally unclear to me how that's numbers decided, and so sometimes I'm just going to make something up. Because if you think about plus 4, each tick right now is about, well, actually let's not do plus 4, that's a good point. So let's say per rocket delay. So per rocket delay, we could do this a little smarter. We could say, I'm thinking like maybe 5 rockets a second, like 0.2 or something. That might be kind of a high amount of time, maybe 0.15, maybe that's like 7 rockets a second. So let's say we do like 7 rockets a second. If I want to do 7 rockets a second, I could do that, which means that I can do this same kind of idea of adding, similar to first rocket delay. So I guess here's the other thing that's stupid. First rocket delay is a bad name of this because the first rocket launches long before this. We think it's the first rocket arrival delay. I was looking at it and it seemed like maybe there's a time before the first one lands, and that's probably what that time is. Because it points out the and actually, it's not. Let's not call it rockets. Let's try to be consistent. Let's call it first missile arrival delay. So it's like the time before we think that the first missile will land. Cool. So with that in mind, it seemed to me that we have the current time. We have the next missile tick. So why don't I go in here and put what is happening in these missile ticks? What are we actually doing? I think what we're doing is simulation, create projectile. And one of them makes an ability projectile, and one of them makes an attack projectile. And so in this case, I want to make the ability projectile from this unit. Now this unit variable is actually the caster, so it's a little bit poorly named. And we're going to use our spell here, get alias. Unit get X, so it's launching from the unit. Unit get Y, again launching from the unit. Launch facing. Okay, so here's the problem, I guess. When we shoot this missile, we want it to go, it's kind of fancy. This is a fancy part of cluster rockets. They do a little circle. They do a 360 with the rockets. They're random, but they're not totally random. They're random in a circle. We got to do the math for that. I don't think the math for that's very hard. I like to maintain that almost everything in Warcraft 3 is made in a hurry. And so if there's an answer with simple math, it's the right answer. To that end, let's copy what we used to do for the random ice in Blizzard and I'm going to change it up a little bit. So random ice in Blizzard used to be, we get the seed in random, and it would loop. I'm not looping anymore. I'm just shooting one rocket here. So let's assume I'm shooting one rocket. Now, Blizzard would do a random angle in a circle. It would just be anywhere in a circle, and then a random distance. We actually don't want to do that. We want to invent a circle that is half the diameter of our area of effect. So instead of randoming within the area of effect, we want to random area of effect times 0.5, half the diameter of the area of effect. And then it's located on a point that is offset from the center in time based on 360 degrees around the circle throughout the effect duration. Which is a little bit nonsense because you would think that maybe that math doesn't totally work out. But that was what it felt like to me when I was looking at it. So I'm going to try to do this. So based on that idea, we want to have a twice chosen random angle, I think, where within the starting circle, maybe I shouldn't just add half the area effect here. Within the starting circle, there's a non-random angle. And this is because essentially it's as if we were targeting around the circle intentionally, but then as we target, we random. So first we have the targeting angle, which isn't random. The targeting angle starts in the direction, probably the direction from the target point faced back to the caster. So basically like unit.angle to target, which is the angle to the target point, but that's the reverse. So it needs to be that thing plus pi, which I guess is supposed to be a float. Is angle 2 also not a float? And it is. Okay, so this whole thing is going to get converted to a float, but I think you know what I mean. So we have basically the angle out there plus pi, so it's back at us. So it's like the circle looking back at us. And we're going to start at that side of the circle, and then we're going to be kind of going around the circle. So that is the targeting angle start. But we have to add 2 pi relative to our time. So like we want to have this time constant, which is essentially how far we are through shooting rockets. Sorry, I typed float here. Elapsed time ratio. So the elapsed time ratio, the idea would be we're going to shoot missiles up until the end of the time, which is the ending tick, effect duration end tick. But not totally. Effect duration end tick is when we've gone all the way around the circle, like all the circles, all the dots around the circle. That's the effect duration end tick. We don't want to go all the way to the end because the last rocket is going to be effect duration end tick minus the amount of time that it takes a rocket to land. So that basically should be a calculation of what is the current time, which is the game turn tick, subtracted from when we started. I'm not sure I recorded when we started, but maybe we don't need to know because we know when we're ending. So basically we're going to take the effect duration end tick when we're ending minus whatever this value is. And if I was really smart, probably we would want to cache this as some kind of constant. So maybe I should do that, but for now I'm not going to do that. Alright, it suddenly occurred to me that there might be some stuff that changes the simulation step time. No, I guess it's constant, but I have to recompile to get a different step time. Maybe in some day somebody's going to have an INI file where you can change that. I don't think that's a good idea, but we'll see. Anyway, so this value right here that I just copied, this is the missile travel ticks. In concept, this is trying to represent the number of ticks of game logic that it takes one of the missiles to go from our guy shooting it to where it's going. So that's the thing, is there's this time delay between when I'm shooting it and when it's landing. And I'm imagining that for the duration of that time at the very end, we're going to stop shooting missiles. We're going to let the last one land. So it would seem like the effect duration end tick, we would want to subtract that time delay to get a time a little bit before the end when we stop shooting missiles. I think that makes sense. Maybe I'm wrong, honestly. Maybe they just don't care. I wonder if they just don't care. But I'll do that for now. I might be making this too complicated. So we take the end, we subtract this little bit of time for the delay between launching and arriving. And then I say, okay, that point in time when we're done shooting missiles, we want to subtract from that the current time. And this is going to be an amount that kind of starts hopefully at 0 and runs all the way to it's going to start at the maximum and going to run all the way to it. So like that amount, probably, if we divide it by effect duration, this is my thought, it becomes a ratio of completion of the spell. And we're going to use that ratio to decide the angle as we go around. That's my thought, which is why this is the elapsed times ratio. It's divided by the effect duration. So I think that should work, the elapsed time ratio. But it's starting out at a big number, and it's going to a small number. So that points out when I have my angle to the other thing, and then I add pi, do I want to like add this angle? It starts out probably at 360. Like basically elapsed time ratio times 2 pi. And I don't know. Sorry, I wanted to kind of auto format that. Is that stupid? Because I think I just did it backwards, right? So we're going to start at this big angle, and it's going to get smaller and smaller, which I think is wrong. I think that it was actually clockwise in there. So maybe what we'll do, honestly, is just say that the elapsed time ratio is 1.0 minus that. So it starts, it was starting at big and going to small. Now it's starting at small and going to big. So we start at an angle towards us, and then we just go kind of clockwise around. That gives us the targeting angle. And again, there's a little bit of random with that. We're not exactly shooting the rockets at the targeting angle. We're shooting it close to there, which is why we're going to remove this spell effect on point stuff that was used to spawn the falling ice that I copied from, but not just yet. Because we do want a random angle and a random distance relative to the targeting angle. So that points out, basically it's kind of like we have a targeting X and a targeting Y that we're going to get with this mathematical cosine off of the target. That's not random. It's this not random point that we're starting from. Here's like the Y, and I'm using the same kind of math to get within a circle, sine and cosine, but it's not, it's not the random yet. So this is, I go to the center to target X, Y, and then I offset by an amount. Now this is where I'm putting area of effect times half, so half area. So I go outward half the area in that direction, and then I'm going to draw a circle around it, and that circle is going to move through in it. So I have this half area, and it's offset by targeting angle, outward half area. Now, from targeting X and targeting Y, that's where we're going to actually have missile land X, which is random. And this starts from targeting X, and then randoms around it from a random angle and a random distance. And so that's where the random distance shouldn't just be half the area, it should be a quarter. Random angle, random distance. And I need to do the same thing for the Y dimension. Alright, let's see, targeting, this needs to be targeting Y, outward with that kind of random distance from that. So I think that's cool, that seems likely to succeed. And then we go in here, try to punch that in. So the facing, as far as I'm concerned, we want to face exactly to where the missile is going to land. So I guess for that one, maybe can I do an angle to where the missile is going to land, which points out where the missile is going to land once an ability target. So I think this is where we need to make a new ability point target, missile land X and Y, and so it's actually not much of an ability point target, but this is where, this is the missile land point. and that allows us to take our caster and get the angle to the missile land point. That allows us to say, yeah, the angle to land point, which we're probably going to use as the launching angle for this missile, because it looks like the engine wants to know the starting angle for the missile. And the speed. Okay, so the speed is another thing that's key here. When I was looking at cluster rockets, it looks like it just chooses a speed, so it's always the same amount of time, which is interesting, right? You kind of do a simple, like, distance is rate times time kind of thing. So the speed of the missile getting from here to there, instead of a speed, we want to think of it as how long it takes to get there. And then we're going to say, what speed do you need to get there in that amount of time? That's what I think this ability is doing. And in order to do that, because I don't think it's honoring the missile speed from the actual, from the settings in the world editor, it didn't look like it was when I tried it. So in order to do this, the speed from where we are to where we're going needs to be computed. Simple distance rate times time idea, right? So what I want to know is the rate, and what I know is the distance, and I know the time. So if distance is rate times time, then rate is distance divided by time. So unit distance, missile land point. Okay, unit missile land point. So this is the distance. So then speed would be distance divided by whatever that constant was called, the first missile arrival delay, which is, I guess it's actually just the missile arrival delay in general. Let's rename it to that. Let's just say this is just the missile arrival delay in general. So that's the speed. So now I'm like, okay, so I have the speed of my projectile going to the destination. And again, I do need to cast it to a float, it looks like, because it was giving a Boolean. I don't think it matters if it's homing, because it's going after a simple point that won't move. And then I guess we have ability projectile listener. Is there a do nothing? There is apparently not. So we want to have one of those, actually. So we're just going to edit ability projectile listener and make it do nothing value, basically, which, simply put, doesn't do anything. And I think that will be helpful to us, because now we can specify we don't actually care about the listener when the missile arrives. It's a piece of art. We're just launching a picture of a missile, basically. So that might honestly work. I don't know. It'll probably do something fun, even if it does something really broken. So I'm kind of inclined to try it. Let's see what happens. If it works, we'll call it a success, and that'll conclude our video of how to create cluster rockets by copying the Blizzard ability. But that's why we test our code, because it probably won't work the first time. We'll find out. Alright, here we are in the game. That's cool.
What you got?
Here's my Tinker. Cluster rockets. Bombards an area with rockets. Can I learn it? Oh, it says error. It's not programmed yet. Okay, so we don't have the ability, so we can't learn it. So that's an interesting point. So we wrote all this code in a file called ability cluster rockets, but we need to link that. Sorry, I wanted to go to C ability data. We gotta link this cluster rockets over here. So we need to just find one of these other abilities we can copy it off of. Maybe I want to say water elemental is made with the new system, and so it's pretty easy to copy. There it is, water elemental. So I think these have some kind of comments organizing them. Neutral dark ranger is one, so I'm gonna put as another neutral tinker, and then for the tinker, basically this gives us a link between the raw code of the ability in the editor and CS, and then the C ability cluster rockets that we just wrote that actually does all that behavior. So I'm pretty sure that by doing that, that'll give us what we actually want here, and maybe I'll auto format it just in case. So now when we try to learn the ability, it won't say ability is not programmed, it'll actually be linked that clicking that ability will link to our piece of code we just wrote. If so, that should be fun. Cool. So here we are. Cluster rockets. So now I'm able to learn it, so that worked. It's an AoE ability, that worked. Well, I shot one rocket. That's interesting. So you can see we're making progress. It does shoot one rocket. Do you suppose it stuns anything? I really have no idea. It doesn't look like it's totally working how it should. Oh, yeah, it stunned them, but it stunned them, kind of like before it actually got there. So it clearly needs some work, because it's only shooting one rocket. And maybe it's not always really functioning how you'd want. So yeah, let's go back and let's edit some code, try to fix that. So why do we think it would only shoot one rocket, even though the rocket was right about in the right kind of place? Next missile tick. Well, I guess I was doing game turn tick +4, which points out I didn't really do this kind of thing that I wanted to do, which is to say we should do game turn tick plus not really missile arrive delay, but I was trying to create that other constant per rocket delay. So that's cool. But yeah, I also didn't use the missile count yet, so we are going to have to do that. So we have the per rocket delay. We have this delay, and we're sending it over there at this missile tick. And for some reason, it's only sending one. We're only really like effectively calling this function one time. So why do we think that is? I wonder if the effect duration is too small to get off more than one rocket. Is there something where, let's say I set per rocket delay to like 0, would we shoot a lot of rockets then, maybe? I'm not entirely sure. I'm trying to think through. If you think through the code we've written, what would make it just do like one rocket and stop? Which doesn't really seem like how we tried to make that be. Although it looked like the stun worked. I mean, that was pretty cool. Just put slap buff stun on it and that works. Alright, so here's my... Oh, so actually, here's another thing. Okay, so I thought I was recording how this actually looked in the game. Kind of looks like it's not. So let me kind of poke around the recording software for a second here. Try to tell this thing we want to capture... Ooh, it's lagging. Yeah, it's really lagging. I don't know why that is. Alright, so yeah, I had a recording issue, but now I've solved the recording issue. Now I can go back to doing what I was doing and try to give an example of this code I was writing to see if it works. So what I'm seeing is it shoots one rocket. We were trying to do many rockets. I can handle that. And then it doesn't shoot more rockets after that. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, we could try to figure out why that is. I had another test unit here with like a big AoE, and that doesn't seem to do anything effective either. But yeah, it is a little bit interesting to see. The rocket is not stunning after the first time.
I can handle that. I can handle that. Let's roll out. Let's roll out. Yeah, baby. Hey-ya! I can handle that. Yeah, baby. Hey-ya! I'm on top of it.
So only when he's not attacked somehow is he able to stun the area.
Yeah, baby. Yeah,
That's
baby.
weird. If he has units up close to him, he's not stunned.
I'm on top of it.
And he only ever is shooting one rocket.
Baby.
So definitely some stuff is not working as expected, I would say. It's interesting to try to figure out what that might be. So it's true I didn't use a missile count. It's giving me an error about that. But even before I used missile count, I was trying to just do a bunch of missiles. That doesn't seem to be working either. I'm not really quite sure why that is. Maybe effect duration end tick is not being chosen into the future far enough. I wonder how, so if we load effect duration, is there any chance that effect duration is not loading into being what we want it to be? Oh, yeah, it's not. Okay, so next wave tick. So effect duration has this typo. That's what it is. We're doing next wave tick plus some stuff, and it was messed up. That's interesting. We'll see where we're at now. Maybe we fixed it. All right, we're loading. Maybe it's fixed. Cool.
I'm all geared up.
Also, I guess what I like to do is try to do some of that. Okay, cool. So now let's try. Do we get more than one rocket? No, we don't. It's still only one rocket.
Engine's running.
See, but I had this test one with a bigger area.
I can handle that.
Does he even stun them?
All
No, he
systems
doesn't.
go. What you got? I can handle that.
Curious.
I can handle that.
Oh, that time he shot a lot of rockets, but they all went to the same place. So sometimes they do.
Let's roll out.
Not every time.
Hi-ya!
That was really interesting.
On top of it. I can handle
I
that.
can get him out of
All
there.
systems go.
Try to like keep him alive. Let's see if I can. Just gonna see if I can keep these Tinkers alive long enough to figure out what their deal is.
10 seconds
They seem to quickly stop casting, and it's some kind of Warsmash bug I haven't seen before.
running.
I'm not quite sure why it is.
All systems go. Get on with it. All systems go.
It's like this guy. He shot one rocket.
I'm on top of it. I can
But there was that one point where the other guy shot a whole bunch of rockets. So it's like they're capable of it, just not all the time.
I'm all geared up. I can handle that. You have 10 seconds to comply. Well, engine's running.
Okay, so if they're not attacked,
Baby.
there he still did one rocket. So he's not remaining casting as long as I would want.
I
That's
can
one
handle
thing.
that.
But it's weird that the other guy managed to shoot off. When he was shooting far away, he shot a lot of rockets instead of just one. I don't totally
I'm all
understand
geared
that.
up.
Something is not working the way we intended. Effect duration end tick is the next wave tick, so it's the game tick plus the missile arrival delay plus however much time it is for effect duration. So we would think that would be this longer time. Here's what I think we're going to do. Let's step through it in a debugger. When you don't know what's wrong with the code, one great solution can be stepping through the code in a debugger. It's like a good way to investigate. Now my stuff is loading, so there's probably nothing on the screen. But once it loads, we'll be able to do it. We'll step it through it in a debugger. It was a little slower in the debug mode. Well, let's see. Okay, here we go. So here's this. So what's going to happen is when he shoots off cluster rockets, the game will freeze, and this is deliberate. And then it'll freeze and allow us to go into the code editor and find out what is really going on. So for me to do that, I gotta go back to the code editor over here. Great. So this has a current wave number. Cool. So what game turn tick? We're on turn tick 514. So then the next wave tick is 534. So a little bit in the future. Next missile tick is still at 514. We're gonna shoot missiles before we deal damage. Seems right enough. And then once we get through here, effect duration end tick is further out. So then I'm wondering, can I go to do effect? And that blinked the screen because the game was thinking a little bit. So now we've gone through all the DM ticks. Oh, that's an interesting one. Suddenly we're on game turn tick 563. How did we get that far? Are we ahead of the next missile tick? Yes, we are. So that makes sense. So we shoot one missile. And then set next missile tick is 563. Yeah, so like wave one basically. And then I guess there are a lot of targets. They're looping through all the damaged targets. But what's really interesting to me, I think, is this idea that the game turn tick is 563 and the end tick is 555, which points out that we had a huge amount of ticks go by before he even started doing anything. So I wonder if Blizzard has this problem too. This is actually this comment is really important. This is stupid and needs to change until do effect's first call. It really is stupid. It really points out Blizzard that I copied off of, like specifically Blizzard and Warsmash, is done wrong. And that's where this is ruining us. All of these computations should be on like a first load kind of thing. So I don't know if we want to just make a boolean for now. Effect started, and that's a little bit gross. It would be nice to not do that, but essentially all this stuff is going to be effect started equals false. We can use, I guess, this to be like all the other code. And then up here, if not effect started, then do all this stuff, and then effect started equals true. Hasn't started, it starts. I guess realistically I could probably conglomerate that as well. So that's interesting. That dramatically changes how this thing works, but possibly it changes it for the better. That's really interesting. So the problem is him beginning the behavior of walking to where he's going. It's kind of a hack, and it's like what I really need is a way to know if it's the first call when it's calling the effect on us. So I bet now he's going to shoot a lot of rockets. Oh, no, he only shot one rocket still. Well, that's different than I expected. What if he does it a second time? No, he still only shoots one rocket. Why is that? The effect hasn't started. Then we do all this stuff based off the current tick. Shouldn't that mean that the effect duration end tick will now be much larger than the current tick? Oh, this greater than. This is supposed to be a less than. There we go. Now we're going to get multiple rockets. It was supposed to be a less than all along. So obviously I made some typos. The point is we return true as long as we keep going. Pretty sure that's how that goes. Maybe not. Wait, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Do effect. Can I get the super class and do effect? Channeling and do effect. So like do effect is a true to channeling. Yeah. Okay, no, I'm right. We're channeling as long as the turn tick is less than the end turn tick. Yeah. Okay, this is gonna be great. It's gonna be great. It's loading. It's telling me that the screen record hasn't recorded it, so I am just gonna window mode the game. Hopefully that's gonna let us see it. Alright, well it appears that it had stopped recording visually, so now I told it to record. I don't know, I'll have to investigate that later. But, yeah, we just added the channeling was greater than instead of less than. Channel while greater than the thing. Doesn't make sense, like while you pass the time. So now that I fixed that, now we have a little bit of rockets going in a circle. Now it does kind of seem like these rockets that go in a circle, maybe they're not going all the way around the circle like I wanted. You know, if we look up, they're kind of starting here and going over there. So you can see it's close. Like here's the guy with the big area one. They're over here. They're trying to go around. You know, I mean, the idea would be this kind of area, right? So it's like he's going over there. and he's going around in a circle. It's almost the right circle, but it does kind of seem like I'm going around in a circle too slowly. Also, I'm definitely shooting more rockets than I'm supposed to, but I kind of figured that would be the case. I was trying to figure out why I wasn't shooting rockets before. It's kind of fun, though, to see the one with the big area. So the one with the small area, I guess one of the interesting things is that it is supposed to have a rocket count, and I'm not honoring the rocket count. So, like, this should be just as we have next missile tick. I'm going to have current missile index or something like that. So basically this is saying that when I start the effect, current missile is 0. I guess probably this begin stuff should be up here too. Current wave, current missile. So essentially whenever I shoot a missile, I'm going to say missile plus plus, and I'm only going to shoot while current missile is less than missile count. So if you have missile count of 6, we only shoot 6 of them. I guess the weird part then is, can we somehow ensure that the 6 missiles go in the full circle? And that's kind of weird because then the time doesn't line up. So we could tell that my time to go around the targeting angle was not, it was too slow. The elapsed time ratio was not moving fast enough. It's not really what we wanted it to be. Something there was not right. Effect duration end tick minus missile travel ticks minus game turn tick. So I guess maybe, what if I just don't incorporate missile travel? Is there a world where that would make it go faster? That trying to have end tick minus duration. Duration goes from 0 to this thing. But would that work? That's interesting to think about, right? So it's like I was trying to say, we have the time from the time we first cast it to the end of effect duration. And that's actually longer than effect duration, because I tried to add some wiggle room where it's like the first launch and then like the time. So then you start to think about, can I have the time between first launch and can I ignore that somehow? Can I just, or am I doing it wrong? Or basically I was trying to say, okay, so we have the end point in time, and we have the current point in time, and we know there's a length between them. And I was saying this length between them could be larger than we want. What if I just don't do that? What if I just say that, well, it's weird though. I would have kind of thought that that would work, and it almost worked. I mean, it was going in the right circle, but it was not the right time. Also, I think per rocket delay, now that we fixed everything, of 0.15 that we had originally is probably right. So we can do that. But yeah, this targeting angle. This is interesting, because the elapsed time ratio, basically I had something that was going too slow. It wasn't getting all the way to the end. And that's what missile travel ticks was trying to fix. But if we wanted a ratio that would go faster, I could potentially divide by less. So we would go around faster. Or I could try to do more accurate math and think about it, you know, where am I failing here? Because I would have thought that we wouldn't send a missile, probably, after, well, I guess we would. See, I was trying to think, maybe would we not send a missile prior to the effect duration end tick? But we kind of would. It's just kind of hacked in here. So it is kind of like this effect duration end, maybe minus missile travel is a little bit wrong. That's putting us back in our position. Like, maybe we'll just try to see it when I delete that. Also, I started thinking that if I run it in debug mode, we might be able to do just a hot swap of the code while the game's still running, so we don't have to keep restarting it, and we can cast the ability, change the code, cast the ability while the game's still running. That would also be really nice, so I might actually try that. I was forgetting that that was possible, but I think it is. So now it's loading again, but we'll see. Cool, so here's the game in the debug mode. Let's go to windowed mode. I feel like it's usually like better. Cool. Alright, so here's the game running windowed mode, debug mode. Do I only get 6 missiles? Yeah, but they're not really in the full circle yet. You know, so if we look at that, it's just kind of like they're really close together. I don't know, it's like I'm not doing the full 2 pi or something. There you go. I feel like it's pretty close though. It's definitely pretty close to the way it was supposed to be. It's like this one, like, just damages a big area. Oh, that's another thing. I don't think cluster rockets is supposed to hit allies. I think this one does hit allies. Like, if I hit this with the area, is that hurting my own guys? I want to say I think it is. Oh no, it didn't. Okay, so just the targeting stuff fixed that. Oh, that's cool. Alright. You can see Warsmash allows the dead bodies to remain stunned, so that's something that ought to get fixed. But, it's a really slow missile. So, obviously the speed is dependent upon the distance, so we probably need to make sure the speed is non-zero if the distance is really tiny. I mean, on the upside, the advantage of that is if you shoot something really far away from you, it'll still shoot the missiles really fast, which I think is pretty much how it's supposed to be. But, yeah, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I definitely think it's really close. I feel like, you know, you could just about play with that and people wouldn't notice. Except that it is a little weird that it doesn't go all the way around the circle. That the time delay of launching them doesn't account for that. So I guess that points out. Can I do that? Oh, remember we said maybe I can edit the code while the game's still running. Can we do a hot swap of the code? That would be nice. Let me see. Can I hot swap the code? Can I edit it while it's still running? So to figure that out, missile travel ticks. Yeah. So we wanna space out the missiles more. And in order to space out the missiles more, I guess what we want to do is say, if it turns out, we could figure out how many missiles we're ultimately going to launch. And I could say if the number of missiles that I'm going to launch is less than the time that I have, then space them out more. At least in the angle that they shoot, if not in the time that they take. So, like, to do that, we want to say, how many missiles will I get to shoot in the time? And in order to know how many missiles I'll get to shoot in the time, we would want to take this same computation, but without the game turn tick. So minus the start, basically. And therein lies the problem, I guess, that we didn't record the start tick. So I think I'm just going to put in maybe effect duration start tick. Hopefully that's not crazy. I probably don't need that. Actually, we'll probably just use the effect duration variable itself. Okay, no effect duration start tick. I'm changing my mind. We just want to say expected missile count. What do we think that is? I think that the expected missile count is the effect duration divided by the per rocket delay. Almost, right? And that's not correct. Because what we actually want to do, let's maybe try to do like a seal command on this, get an integer, something like that. Effect duration divided by per rocket delay. That's not totally correct because we start launching rockets immediately, and we might continue launching rockets for the entire effect duration. So potentially, the maximum number of missiles we might actually count is the missile arrival delay plus the effect duration. Like, you shoot your first missile, it gets there, then we have effect duration. All that time we could be shooting rockets. So that's like the most amount of rockets we could shoot. And then basically, if expected missile count is greater than this dot missile count, so like the user wants to shoot less than that time divided that way, then we do this other calculation where we're going to say, and really this should all be done on startup for performance, so we're probably going to fix that later, but just in concept, we're first going to do the math right. Expected missile count. We had effect duration end tick, but I think what I really want is missile launching end tick. It's like, when do we stop launching missiles? And that would be, well, this should all be calculated on startup, by the way. Since it's not on startup, let's just say it's effect duration end tick minus whatever the number of ticks in the effect duration is. So like that is fundamentally when the effect duration started. Minus missile travel ticks. So that would have been when the ability started, roughly. So yeah, we can figure out when it started. I'm trying to do this because of the hot swap code reload, so I don't have variables. Missile launch end tick, back to the start. So it's kind of like from the start to plus missile count times per rocket delay. But I need per rocket delay to be ticks. Per rocket delay ticks, which we don't have right now. It's whatever we're adding here at the bottom. Per rocket delay ticks. So if we can do that, if I can put that in instead of the per rocket delay, then this might start to get good. Okay, now I know the missile launching end tick. So all that math, here's the thought actually. All that math is unnecessary. Normally we're going to use this dot effect duration end tick minus missile travel ticks. But if we have this weird situation going on with the missile count, then missile launching end tick will equal this other thing that I just computed. Then we use missile launching end tick minus the game tick for this computation. This might, maybe make the things go in a circle. If it weren't for the fact that this is dividing ticks by duration, which is wrong. So we also want to have that is the problem, dividing ticks by duration. That's where it went wrong. Okay, yeah, but we can fix that. Duration ticks, which is normally going to be the effect duration, this thing that I just put there is kind of like effect duration ticks. But notably, if we have to change it, then duration ticks will be a different amount, which will be this will count shortened duration ticks, and then duration ticks equals to shortened duration ticks. I was using it here for the base duration ticks. You could refactor these variables to have better names, but by dividing by the floating point duration ticks with this more accurate value, that might fix it. Now I wonder, does it hot swap reload the code? I don't actually remember, but we can try to see. What do we think? I don't think it did. That looks like it didn't hot swap reload the code. Alright. Yeah, alright. Well, there's probably some setting for that, and it's probably turned off. With that in mind, all of these computations should be as much as possible on the beginning of this. So, yeah, we're going to put this up here, and then I'm going to have missile launch end tick, and then also a missile launch duration ticks. Cool. missile launch and ticks, and then missile launch, duration ticks equals duration ticks. Cool. So missile launching duration ticks is going to get used down here. Now we'll try running it. It didn't hot swap reload the code, so we do have to run it again, do another load. But I think that once we do that loading, it might be nice. Cool. So, will I get it so that there are only 6 rockets, but they go in a circle? Oh yeah, look at that circle. That's exactly what we wanted. Okay, we did it. Math works, you know? Look at that. The rockets are like, boom, and they go in a circle. Now, I do think it's interesting that they go counterclockwise, and in my head, I intentionally thought that I made them clockwise. But, you know, that's kind of its own thing. We could try to figure that out. You know, why is that? Maybe glance at the code for a while. Kind of looks like maybe I had another recording issue. Alright, well, while we deal with the recording issue, maybe I won't be able to record the screen while I talk about this, but if somebody looks back through the video and figures out why do the rockets go in counterclockwise instead of clockwise, it actually is quite obvious. It turns out that in order to go counterclockwise, you would have to add, because we're using standard mathematics where the angle opens in a counterclockwise direction with the trigonometry, and I actually did add, and what I really meant then is I should have subtracted. So that's really simple. It's a simple change to the target angle, but it looks like maybe I can't really record that right now because there seems to be a recording issue with the video. But I'm able to record myself talking.